Today I'm going to run you through some pros and cons as well as some history of various diamond and gemstone shapes. First, I quickly want to cover off the differences between the terms cut and shape because they're used very differently in the industry versus with consumers. The word cut is used in the industry mostly to distinguish between step cuts and brilliant cuts, and I am going to cover off these differences in a different video. But it's also used when we are grading the cut of a diamond, for example, between poor and excellent. And to do that, you're looking at the various proportions of the diamond in order to give that grade, as well as how well that diamond reflects light and the fire, scintillation, and brilliance that it shows. When we say fancy cut, that refers to any cut or shape of diamond that is not a round diamond because it's actually a mix between a step cut and a brilliant cut. And again, I'm going to cover this off in a different video. Now, shape is actually the correct word to refer to the actual perimeter and outline shape of a certain stone, like a heart shape or a pear shape or a rectangular shape. Now, of course, any colored gemstone or diamond can really be cut into any shape, but we tend to have this conversation a lot more with diamonds because there tends to be a much more larger variety of different shapes that we can buy them in. This is because there are so many different types of colored gemstones and they all have different crystal formations. So they tend to be cut to mimic those formations in order to save weight, especially because they can be a lot more rare than diamonds. So this is why we see a lot of colored gems cut very similarly. A lot of ovals, a lot of pairs, a lot of rectangles. For example, a tourmaline grows in a very long and slender crystal, and that's why we almost always see it cut into an emerald shape and or a very elongated baguette. So that's why in this video, when I'm talking about the different cuts and shapes, I'm going to mostly be referring to diamonds because with diamonds, we are looking for maximum sparkle for the most part, and they tend to change their appearance the most depending on the shape that they're cut into. So of course, we have to start this conversation with the most popular shape, and that is a round. It is by far the most popular and most in-demand shape over the years, and it's approximated that around 80% of all diamonds are cut into round, brilliant cuts. Again, just to distinguish this, the shape is round and the cut is a brilliant cut. And there's a reason why brilliant cuts tend to be the most popular, and that's because they are built for optimizing sparkle. They have the most light reflection, the most symmetry, and those 57 facets just reflect light and brilliance so well. Because of this, the brilliant round cut is also an amazing cut choice if you can't afford the best quality of diamond, because again, they do tend to have the most sparkle and light reflection, and therefore they can hide inclusions a lot better than a lot of the other shapes and cuts of diamonds. Of course, the other thing to keep in mind is that a round shape is always going to be in style, unlike some of the other shapes like pears or ovals that tend to come and go and might feel dated at some point. The round brilliant is never going to go out of style and is always going to feel current. The oval-shaped diamond and gemstone has really reigned supreme in the last 10 to 15 years. It's particularly popular for engagement rings. There's quite a few reasons why this very elegant shape has been so popular. One is that, like all elongated shapes, it does tend to look bigger than it really is as far as carat weight, so it can give you a little bit more bang for your buck. And due to its elongated shape, it also can be very slimming on the finger, which gives it a very elegant and sophisticated appeal. Now, similar to the oval, but with a little bit more of a fashionable and dynamic shape is the pear. The pear shape is interesting because it kind of does come in and out of fashion, but it's overall quite classic, and it's been very popular with celebrity engagement rings. One of the reasons I think that is because, again, with that tapered point, it has a very flattering effect on the finger. It can be very slimming, and it's especially flattering for very large diamonds, which of course appeals to celebrities, and it can make a very large diamond still look very elegant and sophisticated on the finger instead of really looking like a rock that kind of looks too heavy on the hand. It's also an interesting shape because it's not symmetrical in the sense that you have the round top and the pointed bottom, and it can be worn point up or point down. I personally love to see the pear shape worn point down with the point facing your hand, and I also really love it with pear-shaped side stones. I think the pear shape is definitely going to continue to get more and more popular, maybe similar to the oval shape, especially now with lab-grown diamonds. People tend to be sizing up their diamonds quite a bit. They've become a lot more accessible, and people may go towards the pear to get a more elegant effect with those very large lab diamond stones. Lastly, keep in mind any shape that does feature a point, like the pear and the heart, for example, can be very prone to chipping. So a lot of experts and jewelers will suggest that you really have a protective setting for that part of the stone. And of course, a bezel setting, which wraps around the entire perimeter of the pear, is really going to make sure that your stone stays protected. And it's also a much more contemporary way to wear this classic stone shape. The Marquise shaped diamond is very unique, and we saw it a lot more traditionally in the 80s and 90s with different engagement rings, but it has made a bit of a comeback, but it's being set now more commonly east to west. This shape has a very interesting history. It is supposedly named after the Marquise de Pompadour, who was the mistress of Louis XV, and was created when he supposedly requested a diamond in the shape of her mouth. I love this shape because I think it's so interesting. It's definitely a bit romantic, it's a conversation piece, and it can be set really interesting in various jewelry designs. The princess cut has all the sparkle of a brilliant cut, but the shape of a square to give it a little bit more of an edge. This shape was absolutely super popular in the 90s and early 2000s. It was definitely one of the most chosen shapes for an engagement ring. If you're not quite ready to go there with your engagement ring, it can actually be a very sophisticated choice for earrings, as well as any eternity styles where the gemstones are stacked next to each other, such as a tennis bracelet or tennis necklace or even an eternity ring. The radiant cut is another one I really love. It's a very interesting shape because it really only came to market in the 70s and has still managed to fly under the radar and not be that popular with consumers. Unlike other fancy cuts that tend to be a combination of those step cuts and brilliant cut, the radiant cut is completely brilliant on the top and bottom. So again, you're getting that maximized sparkle similar to the princess cut, but a bit of a more sophisticated and elevated shape with the rectangle. That brings us to the very sophisticated and popular emerald cut diamond, which is a step cut. So instead of having those very sparkly triangular shaped facets, you're getting very elongated and parallel facets with a step cut, which tends to give it, again, this very elegant kind of hall of mirrors type effect. Of course, the emerald cut tends to be the most popular cut for actual emerald gemstones, which is where it gets its name. Unlike the brilliant cut diamonds, which have all that fire and sparkle, which can hide inclusions, with a step cut diamond, you aren't really getting that effect, and therefore there really isn't anywhere for inclusions to hide. This is why with clients who can afford very high quality, very large diamonds, just love this cut because it really shows them off the best. And it's why we've seen it with some of the most famous engagement rings throughout history, including Elizabeth Taylor, Beyonce, and Grace Kelly. Now, just like the princess cut is the square version of the radiant cut, we have the Asscher cut, which is the square version of the emerald cut. So just like the rectangular shaped step cut emerald, the Asscher features those linear parallel step cuts, but in a square shape with those same cut corners that a lot of people love because it can be set into a very Art Deco-ish octagonal setting. The Asscher is very interesting because it was invented in 1902 by a very famous Dutch diamond cutter named Joseph Asscher. And he was famous because he worked a lot with the royal family, and he was the famous diamond cutter to cut the Cullinan diamond, which was over 3,000 carats. Again, just like the emerald cut, it's very elegant and sophisticated, and it has a really beautiful effect, but it's not quite as flattering as the emerald cut, I would say, because again, you have that square shape and it's not going to look as large as the emerald cut. I think for smaller carat sizes of diamonds, like let's say under a carat, it's not favorable because you're not going to get the benefits of seeing those really beautiful step cuts in the diamond. I think if you have a larger diamond, let's say 1.5 carats and above, you can consider the Asscher cut because it's really going to show off the diamond a lot more. Another shape that has been massively popular with celebrities over the years, including Meghan Markle, Kelly Rowland, and Jessica Alba, is the cushion shape. One of the reasons why it has so much appeal is because it does kind of strike that happy medium between the very classic round and emerald shapes. It does have a very classic look, which, similar to the round, feels like it's always going to be fashionable and never really go out of style. And it also tends to mimic the look of an old mine-cut diamond. So it really has this kind of heirloom feel to it and tends to look very luxurious in general. The heart shape is one I've covered off recently because it is gaining in popularity so much, but I do love this shape. It can be considered a little bit retro or a little over the top because of course it is a very romantic shape. Heart shapes are also very hard to find because they do require a master cutter in order to get this very symmetrical and beautiful heart shape. Again, because this shape is so difficult to source, when you are shopping for a heart shape, you really want to look for that beautiful symmetry. You don't want the cut to be too deep, and you want the lobes at the top to be nice and round, a nice point, and that the heart isn't cut too slender or too wide. You really want it to have a beautiful, eye-pleasing shape. While you may not love the heart shape for, let's say, a diamond solitaire engagement ring, that may feel a little over the top for you as far as romance, we are seeing the heart shape really come back with trois mois rings as one of the shapes. Really popular for signet rings as well, especially in a beautiful color gemstone like a ruby, an emerald, a sapphire, a hot pink tourmaline. And it can be really interesting when set into that bezel setting. Again, it's going to give it more of a modern edge and make it feel a little less prim. And you can definitely use this, especially with earrings, a pendant necklace, and it really has kind of a cool edge to it because we haven't seen it used in more interesting jewelry designs in quite a while. Lastly, we have the triangle-shaped diamond, and these are sometimes referred to as trilliant or trillion-shaped diamonds, and they're interchangeable terms. The triangle shape was invented in the 60s, and it does have a very modern effect, and although it's been really used for side stones mostly, especially because it does have a brilliant cut, it's very sparkly and can add a lot of brilliance to a center stone, this can be a very interesting shape on its own. It can also be an amazing shape for earrings or even a pendant necklace, and I love that it's very versatile. Again, you could wear it with the point up or down or a flat side up or down, and I really think this is a very modern and a special shape to consider for a very unique engagement ring or other piece of jewelry. Thank you so much for watching, and to learn more about gems and jewelry, be sure to check us out on our main page at winstongemsandjewelry.com.